We're going.
Bye-bye, dinghy. We don't have roof racks.
Back to the big project.
Yes, let's go. After 6 months away, it's time to go back. Refitting our Cape George Cutter 36 is most certainly the biggest refit or project that Maya and I have undertaken together. It is a big one and there is lots to do. One side I'm excited to get there to be able to start them, but yeah, try not to think too much about all the things, because otherwise all my gear is going overdrive and then I start hyperventilating because don't know where to start. Big smiles! We are in! Woohoo!
Back.
Yes. First.
Just how we left it.
Just how we left it. Hello. How are you?
Magic Carpet 2 is a Cape George 36 and our future Blue Water home. We bought her, sight unseen, in 2020 for $11,000, which was literally all the money we had at the time. And now, for the past few years, we've juggled visa restrictions to get the massive refit underway. Now, the perhaps insane plan is to get this boat in the water within 6 months.
Where did the cockpit go? The cockpit is gone! Must have been a big tornado. Oh no.
The deck is looking good though.
Yeah, and it is 2/3, if not 3/4. So this is gonna be a little peep squeak work back here. Yeah. No, I'm most bummed about the galley. Rebuilding lockers and all of that stuff that isn't visible. It's more about the logistics that later on you kick yourself if you wanted to position something a little differently. Mm. But making an interior look pretty quickly, that's the challenge. Yeah. First impression and the first emotion when arrived was relieved and super happy. But we did know that there is lots to do, and that's when it started to get more complicated.
So we have 6 months here, and the plan is to finish the project. I use air quotes because I don't think it'll be completely every single little detail finished. But we want to get all the major components done.
The main goal is going to be finishing and closing up the cockpit, waterproofing the decks. We are planning on putting in an engine so that we also have mobility. And I might, if I get to it, also focus on the rig. So then we have all the structural things on the sailboat done. And as for everything else, we're gonna try our best, of course, and to also continue on dialing in the interior. But there's many things that, we'll have to see how far the rest progresses. Of course, plumbing is needed, an electrical system. Even though they are less comfortable, those things could be done later on, because then it's not a rebuild of the boat, then it's the things that often just need to be done and are done in the water too.
Oh, and actually pretty soon here my dad's gonna arrive.
Yay!
He's
a hero!
Yes, he very kindly volunteered to bring down the dinghy that Aladino just built because my car can't transport it. Dad, I gotta say, you're very quickly becoming a fan favorite on Sailing Magic Carpet.
Oh, am I getting lots of likes?
You are.
I think I know what that means.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks so much, Dad.
It was my pleasure. Lots of fun. And I'm really happy that you guys are back again.
Yeah, us too.
Going to start moving towards your ultimate goal of splashing her, getting her in the water, and getting her sailing,
and doing what you have done from hearing all those great stories.
Mm-hmm.
And now you have a dinghy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yes, we've arrived back safely, and we've even got our new dinghy with us. In total now, we've worked on Magic Carpet 2 full-time for 9 months. Now, we've got another 6 months in front of us, and all we have to do is figure out how to get restarted. So after my dad left and we were just sort of left to our own devices to get started, we just started by cleaning everything, taking inventory, wrapping our minds around the project again. After so long away, it's actually kind of hard to just pick back up in an instant, so we had to refamiliarize. And I think the first thing we're going to do is come up with a plan for the entire boat that lists out all the major jobs that need to be done and the steps to achieve them.
Since we want to get the most done on the boat, then I understand how it's best if I change the way that I generally do things and I write things down a little more. So we have a list and we can just look at the list and go like, oh, let me just do that. I have all those things in my head normally, but now being two persons that think a little differently about projects, and that does make sense.
So we have set ourselves the ambitious and perhaps somewhat insane goal of getting this boat in the water within 6 months. In order to pull that off, we're going to have to work very efficiently, and we're both going to have to be really involved in the project. I think in the past, the idea was like, Aladino's the one with all the boat building experience. So he will build the boat and I will do all the video stuff, and then I will, help out where necessary. But now I'm really going to try to be more of like a very active participant in the refit, which means that I'm also going to have to maybe try to step up my skills a little bit. I'm not a boat builder. I've never trained. I do feel very much like a fish out of water when I'm in the workshop, and I'm going to have to work on that. All right, for the first time ever in the history of Sailing Magic Carpet, we're going to make a plan.
Oh, well, we always have a plan.
You always have a plan in your head.
It's secret to everybody else.
Exactly. So Deanie's wrote out kind of a little bit of a list of everything that we've got to do on the boat. I'm going to translate it to these big poster boards that we can then hang up in the shop and have a very satisfying thing to cross off whenever we're one step closer towards finishing the boat.
And of course, making a plan for the entire boat is almost impossible. So it was more sort of big overarching bullet points, but it's a starting point.
Welcome to our plan. It's not completely conclusive yet. There's still more to add. For example, we haven't added anything about the engine or the electrical stuff yet. Right now, it's just about getting the bones where they need to be. But it's going to be really satisfying to cross some of these things off. So, where are we going to start? There's very few points on this plan that actually include any form of destruction. We're pretty much at a point now where the boat can move forward and move towards the direction it needs to be in. But there are just a few points of actually needing to remove things from the boat before we can progress forward. Most notably, we've got removing the glass from the cabin sides, which is something we'll discuss more later about why we're doing that. And in the galley, we have to remove the sink cabinet and the balsa behind it. So those are 2 destruction tasks, and I think we're just going to get started with those so that everything else going forward will be building back up and moving the boat closer and closer to finally being on the water.
We had left the galley until the very end, and to our surprise it ended up being a bit worse than anticipated. That's the one place where I wanted to leave in the interior, not to have to redo it. But we discovered that the balsa underneath the galley was actually the worst. So just before leaving, we ripped it all up, and that was, a bummer. So we knew that the first thing we wanted to tackle as soon as we were back is to start from scratch with the galley. After having worked on the project for quite a few months already, it was definitely not rewarding at all or nice to keep destroying things right after coming back. It would have been nice to see some fruits of the labor. Of course, they are visible, but it's not as rewarding if you're still taking things apart. So since such a large area is affected, we plan on actually replacing it with foam instead of balsa.
So I decided to keep this in place and rebuild from here. And I left this corner in such a way that I can put in the new partition. So my mission for today, we still have to order the foam, so that's on hold for a little bit now, but I have a few things to prepare. One is I have 2 more through holes, the last 2 that I haven't grinded a scarf on yet, and I need to close them up. And that is because I am, as I said with all the others too, I'm relocating them to the ideal position. This bulkhead needs a little more and better tabbing. Some of it has been cut away. There's many holes in the bulkhead. I will address those. Another really important thing in here are the water tanks. And the water tanks are buried underneath everything else. They are under the cabin sole. So since the cabin sole is half loose already on this side, it doesn't take much to get it up on the other side.
It just makes sense to start from the ground up. The bilge is it in a boat. The bilge represents a clean bill of health for a boat if that one is looking good. And then the floor grid accepts the cabin sole, of course. Cabinetry is built onto the cabin sole, so it just makes sense to start from there.
So yes, surprise, surprise, this is going to be a ground-up refit. But first, Aladino will start with the through hulls and closing those up.
We gotta find a way to make it stay the same.
Oh no!
What?
I go in to edit videos for 2 hours, and all of a sudden...
It's okay. So we figured the salon looks basically done. So yeah, it's okay to rip something else up.
Yeah, can't have that now, can we? So the galley, of course, is not like an essential component of the boat in the sense that the boat could go into the water without the galley being made. But part of the plan when the boat goes into the water is we do want to try to move on board. So in that sense, having at least a rough outline of the interior is definitely necessary. We're not planning on doing like all the final touches and having it be beautiful and perfect in its final form. But we can't really live in it like this, so we gotta bring it up to speed. So of course I know this is all for a greater purpose, but it is really painful to come back and just immediately see more of the boat getting ripped up. We have worked on this boat already for 9 months of very intensive work, and I don't know, I guess it's just like a little bit of a disappointing homecoming in the same way that it was a disappointing goodbye when we left last time and we ended up, you know, just a few days before leaving, finding out that the galley was super rotten. In fact, the most rotten area of the whole boat. So yeah, we're building back up, but at the moment the boat looks visually not great, and that is a little demoralizing.
I had planned to change the design of the water and diesel tank inputs and outputs and vents and all of that from the beginning. So removing the floor grid really allowed me to do a more proper approach to the change in my design. So basically I wanted to include a fiberglass neck just to raise everything from the bottom of the tank, because if oil or water would accumulate, it would be right above that surface. And we have seen previously that that can lead to contaminated diesel or water. So I think that's a pretty important change to make.
Just one close fist is the we don't wanna change. Oh no. Younger in the morning than wine at night.
Look at that! Direct access to the water tanks.
Look at that. Quick to get rid of things, and I have to think how to proceed. Oh boy. Ugh.
I've also decided to add a new fresh layer of fiberglass in the bilge. That is because it had glass added at some point, but the prep work was not done ideally, so that layer was peeling. That means that whatever dirt in the bilge would always seep in between those layers. And instead I would want one continuous one, of course, so one homogeneous bucket that would be easy to clean. The other reason is also that the forward end of the bilge is one side of our water tank, and the aft part of the bilge creates our diesel tank. So those are really important partitions that we really also want to have waterproof, as water and diesel proof as possible.
I'm going to start by sanding the decks. We have this fairing compound that we left on last time we were here, and it needs to be sanded down. Once it's sanded down, then the decks are ready for fiberglass, which is a huge moment because that's going to waterproof the decks, and it's pretty exciting. We've done a huge amount of work on these decks. So I did sand the decks, but I didn't film myself doing it at all. I think I'm really gonna have to figure out a new balance with filming and working. I think previously I always weighted myself as like more of a filmmaker. So if I was kind of working on something, then if Aladino needed me to film him, I would just run over there and film him. But now that I am trying to be a lot more hands-on, like all day, every day, it's going to be a bit more challenging to figure this out. Because now I have to think about the project I'm doing, filming myself doing the project I'm doing, while also keeping track of what Aladino's doing and filming him. And he also needs to get a little bit more like in the mindset of thinking about the filming also. So there's just lots of adjustments to make. But once I was done sanding, there were a few more tough decisions that we had to make. All right, time for the next project. This is one of those ones that we procrastinated, or I don't know, tried to talk ourselves out of, I guess, last time we were here. And that is the fiberglass on the cabin side. Now, one of the very first things we did when we got the boat is Aladino went around basically tapping all over the boat, trying to figure out if the fiberglass was adhered properly, and especially on this side, we found a lot of spaces, or he found a lot of spaces with voids where the fiberglass is not attached properly to the wood, it's delaminated. And so I think the last few times we were working on the boat, we were kind of just putting this fact to the back of our minds, but now we've realized it's important to tackle it, because if we've gone to all this trouble to make the decks waterproof and new, it would really be unfortunate if the cabin sides started to rot. So in the grand scheme of things, this is not actually a massive project. We already have to fiberglass the decks, so just taking off the fiberglass on the side here isn't going to be such a huge deal. The fiberglass on the cabin top, we haven't found any particular signs of delamination, so we're gonna leave that in place. We might add an additional layer of fiberglass over it, but that's it. So that's the plan.
Burning real bad, feet don't touch ground. Can't see us coming, lightning striking down.
That comes pretty easy, hey?
Yeah.
So that's part of the problem.
Also, and luckily it doesn't take, it's not splintering off a lot of wood yet.
Yeah, I don't think it will. I mean, remember when we peeled the decks off and they came off in huge swaths and they didn't really take any of the wood off? Whatever the resin they used just didn't adhere very well.
Well, very likely polyester.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, let's continue here.
I think the tricky part to get off is going to be this bottom part.
Not if we make cuts this way.
Okay.
Because then if everything is loose, then this will lift off easier.
Okay.
Like you have to pry at it from this way.
Oh, gotcha.
Dodging close calls, living on the edge. And when the night falls, that's when we get ahead. But with the broke, leave from the smoke, and then a sudden flash, yeah, we gone again.
Stripping the fiberglass off the cabin sides feels like one of the last demolition jobs, but I've been surprised before.
Running, yeah, out here on the run. Running, yeah. Watch out, here we
Peeling the glass away from the cabin sides was pretty easy, which we also had suspected. That's why we did it, because there were a couple of voids. We didn't really know what we would find underneath though, so we were hoping for not too bad of surprises. Of course, the worst scenario would be to find rotten wood.
Wow. Well, the wood looks to be in good shape, right? There's maybe a little bit of a tiny moisture staying up at the top there.
Yeah, there's a little bit, but no. Oh yeah. Wow, the smell.
Yeah, it really smells like fresh wood.
Oof, instantly.
fixing it all up. Of course. When I start peeling it, all the wood comes off. Oh. Yeah, I mean, I think this is just going to be a recurring theme. Learning something new is not always a smooth process, and especially when there's this sort of time pressure behind it, I think I can get really hard on myself if I don't know how to do something well right away, which I know is not realistic, but I think the reason why that's amplified is because of the time pressure and knowing that we need to get things done, and if I'm not able to get them done, it's frustrating. So I have a learning curve ahead in more ways than one. I mean, the physical learning curve of actually completing these tasks, but I think definitely also a mental one, because I've really struggled with this refit in the past. I am a fish out of water in this whole setting, apart from the filming, that's what I like. And it's going to be a challenge. I'm going to do it, I'm going to push through, but it's not going to be smooth sailing. I know that. All right, I managed to get pretty much all of the fiberglass off, with one exception, which I'll show you. But this side actually has a lot more discoloration in the wood. You can see down here, it's pretty discolored, but again, not rotten. So I do think that it's a really good thing that we've done this. Over here, you can also see more discoloration, and then over here, I struggled removing the fiberglass because you can see this is where a repair was actually made. So I guess that this got to a point where it was bad enough that at some point in time, somebody cut out a section of the cabin side and actually replaced it with a new piece of wood. And then they used something which bonds a lot better to that wood. So this is difficult to remove, but we'll get there. Maybe just with like a grinder or a sander even. Yeah, it looks like in good condition. It definitely wouldn't be a good candidate for clear varnish because there's definitely some visible damage.
At first glance, yeah, the cabin sides actually seemed fine. Some cosmetic defects here and there, but nothing major. But my opinion definitely changed after a closer inspection and a little bit of the very revealing sanding. One area was pretty dark, and that was disheartening. The cabin top instead didn't show as many voids like the sides, but it still had a lot of putty and a lot of cracks, not just hairline cracks, but bigger ones. So I wanted to see what was going on, because I know that mostly you cannot just fill a crack with more gel coat or filler. So we wanted to grind everything off to inspect properly. And the glass on the cabin top was definitely bonded a lot better, so that's why the option of grinding away as much as needed to get a visual inspection rather than starting to try to peel the glass off, which might also just bring up chunks of plywood. So the plan after grinding down the entire cabin top and see what is happening is to actually add another layer of fiberglass to waterproof it and further stabilize the surface. The decks, cabin sides, and cabin top are progressing, and I've definitely moved away from perfection. Yeah, quite far from that actually now, how I'm doing things. But some tasks, they just require the extra work and a little more detail. It's hard for me to tell at this point how the final ETA will be, but where I can, I cut it shorter, and where it needs to, I just take the time needed. But finding that balance, of course, is a challenge. And that's something that I'm gonna have to practice mechanically, emotionally, psychologically, and hilariously. No. What?
That was good.
No.
All right.
All right. Demolition week is over.
Yes, episode 1 comes to a close. How does it feel to be back? It's a lot of things. It's, I think it's overwhelming. It's good that we feel like we're moving towards the end again, but the road to get there is going to be intense. The next few months are going to be chaotic and challenging.
Yeah, for sure.
But we are now at a point where I think we can pretty truthfully say that everything moving forward will be progress. We're not going to be demolishing things anymore. We're going to be building back up. I mean, I guess with some small exceptions, but for the most part.
There's always exceptions.
Oh my gosh. No, but really, I think we can say that we're pretty much over that.
I know what you mean.
Yeah. So what's next?
Definitely progressing on the spots that are the most behind and bare. So for sure ordering foam and starting from scratch, so to speak, on the galley.
Yeah.
The bilge, a new floor in the galley, stuff like that, I think is high on the list. And then the rest of the demolition, which is grinding the cabin top, get those things going too.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Sounds good. So should we cross off what we've done in this episode?
Sure.
Let's do it.
Is there something to cross off?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I have taped the plan up onto the side of the boat, so it's the first thing that we see when we come into the workshop every morning. First list under the deck is to remove the glass from the cabin sides, and we have now done that. So it gets to be crossed off. Yoo-hoo! What else have we got going on? The galley. We've removed the sink cabinet and we've removed the balsa. And we have ordered the foam, but we've not installed it. So I reckon we can cross off the order. And we'll get to installing the foam in the next episode. So there's still a lot to cross off, but that's why we're here. So thank you so much for watching, everybody. We are so thrilled to have you guys here, and the support that we read in the comments every day really helps to fuel this project, so thank you. If you really enjoyed this episode and would like to get real-time updates, because these YouTube videos are never in real time, then please consider becoming a patron. Every Tuesday or Wednesday, depending how the week's going, we post a real-time update on Patreon, which is exclusive to that platform. It never gets published anywhere else. And when we're doing the refit, that often the real-time update usually takes the form of a sort of informal vlog where we walk through what we're doing and involve you guys in the real-time decisions of what's going on. You can become a patron for as little as $2 a month. It's completely flexible what you donate, and you can completely customize that when you set up your account. And it's what keeps the channel going, so thank you so much. An extra big thank you to the folks whose names are now appearing on screen for always going the extra mile to make sure that Magic Carpet keeps being produced. We'll see you all next Friday.